Welcome into the NFL opening line report, week number 11. I am Drew Martin alongside Teddy Covers. We're getting you on the right side of some of these line moves for this upcoming week in the NFL. Without further ado, my partner in crime at Teddy_Covers on Twitter, wagertalk.com. Teddy, welcome on in, bud. Happy Monday morning to you.
Welcome in. Happy Monday, Drew. Happy Veterans Day. Great to be here. Had a winning weekend in the NFL for the clients. Cashed a 5% big ticket winner with Pittsburgh. So also doing all right this morning. Thank you.
There you go, man. And we got the Miami Dolphins, LA Rams. We'll hit it quickly, guys, at the top of the show. We were seeing 48 or 48.5, 49 being the total, -2 and a hook, pretty much across the board. There is a -3 out there. That's the Rams as the home favorite. So Dolphins cross-country trip here. Fast track, though, controlled climate. What are we thinking with the Fins and the Rams Monday Night Football, Teddy?
So we've seen a little bit of LA Rams money. We've seen a little bit of under money throughout the course of the week. When we talk about what we expect to see between now and kickoff tonight, I would not be surprised at all if we see the money shift back to the over for this evening. I think 48.5 is about as low as this total is going to get. So if you like the over, I would bet that sooner rather than waiting till closer to kickoff. When it comes to the side, this game's not going to 3 in any real way. If it goes to 3, you'll see immediate buyback on Miami at +3. So I think we're going to sit in this 2.5 minus juice range between now and kickoff. At least that's what it feels like at 10 o'clock in the morning.
All right, let's flip the script here, guys. NFL opening line report, week number 11, starting right now, Thursday Night Football. We get the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles. 313, 314, the rotation numbers. 49 being the total. We're seeing mostly, well, it's actually a split line right now, TC. -3, -3.5. That's the Eagles at home in Philadelphia Thursday night.
Yeah, when we do the NFL opening line report each and every Monday throughout the course of football season, I'm going to give you 4 sets of lines for every game. We're going to give you a look-ahead line. That was a bettable number on these games from last week. Westgate Superbook puts out their number on Tuesday for the following week. So we'll give the numbers from last Tuesday, the look-ahead lines. We can see how much the lines have adjusted from the look-aheads based on the results of one game. I'm also going to give you my power rating. That's the second number I give. My power number is just Team A, Team B. I do not factor in situations from a pure powering number. The third number is what I call the opener. That's what I consider a consensus opener. That's what I usually write them down Sunday night at the beginning, in the middle of Sunday Night Football. I'll write down the current numbers, the consensus openers, and then, of course, the last number will be where the number has moved from the opener, what we're talking about, the current numbers for today. So when it comes for Washington, Philadelphia, look ahead line, Philly -3.5, total of 50. My powering number, Philly only -3. The markets opened 3/3.5, 49 last night. And basically we're seeing 3/3.5, 49 this morning. So we haven't seen a lot of move. And the markets haven't decided if they want this number to be 3 or 3.5 yet. So advantage bettors. If you like Washington, you can get a 3.5 now. If you like Philly, you can lay a 3 now. I'm not convinced both those options will be available as we get closer to kickoff. Washington lost yesterday. I had a big ticket play against them, so I was not sad to see them lose. And look, the Commanders were gifted a touchdown when Pittsburgh dropped a fake punt pass from their own 15-yard line. And they forced a fumble at the 1-yard line. So really, it's a 2-touchdown swing on those 2 plays, and they still lost as chalk, which isn't necessarily a good sign. You know, the quotes after the game, too many small mistakes, Cleveland Farrell, after the ball game. And that was it wasn't like Washington played a bad game. They just had some execution issues, and they weren't the better of the 2 teams. But now we got the Commanders coming off a loss. Certainly, I didn't see anything to downgrade Washington off of yesterday's performance. It was Pittsburgh playing well more than Washington playing poorly. And certainly from a defensive line standpoint, Philly has an edge. All right. And Philly's 5-0 straight up their last 5. All 5 wins, though, came against teams with losing records. Cleveland, the Giants, Cincy, Jacksonville, Dallas. Not a good team in the mix. And obviously, when you're facing Cooper Rush and company until Trey Lance came in and you generate 5 takeaways, you're likely to win by margin, which is exactly what Philadelphia did in yesterday's ballgame. It is worth noting that Jalen Hurts took a lot of pressure in yesterday's game. It ended up, 5 sacks and a fumble in the first half of that ball game. That could be a concern here against the Commanders. That being said, again, I don't know if this line is going to hold at 3 or 3.5. I really don't know right now which way it's going to go. So the answer is whichever side you like, get the best of it right now and lock yourself in, because I'm not convinced that, like I said, both options will be available by kickoff.
We'll turn the page here, guys. Sunday, November 17th. It is the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears. 451, 452, kicking us off here, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Top of the card, we're working our way down in rotation order. -6, -6.5 is out there as well. That's the Packers as the road favorite. 41 the total in Soldier Field, Teddy.
Yeah, and I'm going to take a few minutes. Like, this game is probably going to be my longest analysis of any of them, but I'm going to take a few minutes because there's a lot of stuff to unpack for Green Bay, Chicago. Don't worry, they're not all going to be this long, but I got a ton of info for this particular ball game. Look ahead line here. Packers -2.5. Big adjustment to Chicago after getting blasted at home by New England. A total 45 at the look ahead. My power number has the Packers 6. Markets open 6/6.5, 41 last night. We're seeing more 6s than 6.5s this morning. So Green Bay coming off a bad home loss to the Lions and a bye week. All right. This is a team, with the Jordan Love behind center, they're 2-5 against the spread. So, 0-3 last 3 with Jordan Love behind center. They beat the Jags, they beat the Texans, but didn't cover. And then Jordan Love losing to Detroit in the quagmire last time out. Now, down the stretch last year, the Packers were a machine after the bye week. 6-2 straight up, 5-2-1. The last 8 to make the playoffs. That included straight up dog wins against Kansas City, Detroit, the Rams. Jordan Love's thrown at least 1 interception in every game this year. Is that something that's going to be a problem here against Chicago? Well, the Bears aren't intercepting a lot of passes right now. And I don't think that Love's turnover issues this year are a systemic problem. I don't think he's making a ton of bad throws. He's had a handful, but he's been as much unlucky as he has been bad. Of course, the running game's been there. The offense is fine. 7-9 games, they scored 24 plus, and they won one of the 2 they didn't in Indy Week 2. Defense, first-year coordinator in Jeff Hafley, they've only allowed 24 plus 4 times. I think as a playoff caliber unit, they've gotten better. And, of course, 19 takeaways from this defense. But only a +6 turnover margin, because only 4 teams have more than Green Bay's 13 giveaways. So I personally think I use the Packers as my just the tip buy team last week on a bet on it, talking about how I thought there was some value right now with Green Bay moving forward. For Chicago, there was a lot of bad buzz coming out of the locker room last week in the national press. And a lot of times whatever. Boy, it sure felt correct watching them play. 3rd straight game where the offense just didn't work. Flat out didn't work. Didn't work against the Commanders. They had a little bit of a life in the 4th quarter and obviously lost that on the Hail Mary. Didn't work in Arizona and didn't work yesterday against New England at all. They had 11 first downs for the games. Caleb Williams was sacked 9 times. Had a net 69 yards on 39 dropbacks. Yes, that's less than 2 yards per pass attempt. There was 0 separation of the receivers. Didn't matter. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Romeo Dunze. The long pass of the day was 18 yards for Chicago. And, of course, the Pats' run defense is no good, but it didn't matter. DeAndre Swift didn't have a carry longer than 9 yards, only 3.7 yards per carry. All right. Games being played in Chicago. I don't think the Bears want to play in Chicago right now. The fans were chanting fire Flus by the end of the game. They're 14-29 in 2.5 seasons now under Matt Eberflus. After the game, Eberflus said, it's Shane Waldron's fault. Maybe I'll take the coordinator, the play calling duties from my offense coordinator. His quote, "I do believe in those guys. They have faith in us working together. I believe in our football team. I believe in the leaders of the football team. We just have to get back to work." Safety Kevin Byard not as amused. Lose 3 straight, it definitely snowballs. It's not a great feeling. Something we've been planning to do. It's not something we expect, but it's the situation we're in. We got to find a way out of it. Again, it's 23 consecutive offensive drives without a touchdown. Longest active streak in the L. Cole Kmet, same story. Just being in a funk the last 3 weeks. We got to find a way out of it. But not going to be easy, because here's the thing. Wasn't reported on at all last week. All right. As the week went on, the Bears kept losing linemen. By mid-game on Sunday, they were missing all 5 of their starting linemen. All right, Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright out, Nate Davis out, Tevin Jenkins got hurt during the game. It is a problem when you have a rookie quarterback, receivers that aren't getting separation, and an offensive line that is missing every single starter. Maybe -6 is low for Green Bay. I would not be surprised if the Bears injury report looks like it did last week on the offensive line. This line ends up closing -7 or higher.
Great in-depth analysis to start us off here on Sunday. Green Bay and Chicago in the books. Moving down the list here, 453, 454, 10 a.m. Pacific kick. It's Cleveland and New Orleans, 44 being the total. We are seeing the Saints -1. There is a -1 in the hook out there as the short home favorite in the Big Easy, TC.
Yeah, look-ahead line here was Saints -1.5, total of 42. My powering number came Saints -2.5. The market's open 2.5, 44 last night, and we've definitely seen this legit move towards Cleveland at the open. Not a crazy move, but the Browns have taken the early money in this one, and the line, as you mentioned, mostly ones out there. We're talking about the Saints and the Browns right now, so a little bit of early money for Cleveland. Of course, the Browns are off that 27-10 home loss to the Chargers, a game where Jameis Winston threw 3 interceptions, all in the fourth quarter, I believe. Offense only gained 3.8 yards per play. Defense allowed 6.1 yards per play. They allowed 3 touchdowns and 3 red zone tries. It was not a good performance. Now this is a Cleveland team that came into the season expecting to compete for the playoffs. Now their season's hopeless. Coming off the bye week may not be a time where we're going to get that. I don't know what we're going to see the Browns down the stretch. I want to do some reading this week and see if I can get a sense for what their mentality is. I worry a lot. The teams that were supposed to be playoff contenders and they're not, come mid-November, sometimes the effort level drops off. That's something to potentially be concerned about for the Browns in this one. Certainly didn't play their best game last time out either. As for the Saints, I mean, yeah, they won yesterday's game, but no, the Falcons lost that game. Atlanta missed 3 field goals. They have a chance to seal the game. Alvin Kamara drops the pass. 5 of their 6 second-half drives, including the last 4, were all 3 and outs. Their receiving core is devastated by injuries. Going into yesterday's game, their receiving core had a combined 15 receptions. The entire receiving core as a Saint coming into the game. And 14 of them came by undrafted rookie free agent Mason Tipton from that football hotbed at Yale University. But obviously, Valdez-Scantling came in and had a huge impact yesterday's ball game. Nonetheless, it is still a limited receiving core right now. That being said, Saints defense is underrated to their stats. They've had some really ugly games this year, an ugly statistical profile on D. This isn't one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Yesterday, they had a couple of red zone stops. They forced a turnover. They held Atlanta to 17. I think from a defensive standpoint, the Saints are a little bit underrated. And of course, you have the new head coach bump, Darren Rizzi. Today doesn't happen without complete buy-in. This city is starving for some wins. We were hungry to give them one, and that was awesome. Alvin Kamara talked about the interim head coach. Rizzi came in. He had a clear message. Unity was one of the words of the week. And when you're united, you all believe you're all together now. There's so much you can do. So positive signs for the Saints. We'll see how long they last. Cleveland might be the right team to continue those positive signs against.
Next one up, the LA Rams, New England Patriots. We are seeing the Rams -4.5. There is as high as -5.5 out there. That's the Rams as the road favorite. 43.5 being the total. Keep in mind, guys, the Rams playing Monday Night Football. So, Teddy, that sets us up for the Monday Nighter. Next Sunday, though, Rams going across country. Rams at Patriots. Next game up.
Sure. Rams look-ahead line -4.5, total of 43. My powering number has the Rams -5. The market's opened proper 5.5 last night. Total 43.5. 43.5 remaining the total today. We are seeing a little bit of New England money, as you mentioned, 5s and 4.5s popping up from that ball game. If the Rams look bad tonight, yes, I think this number will come a little bit shorter. There's certainly some wise guy interest in New England now in a way there probably wasn't a month ago because the Patriots are playing better. Last 3 games, 2 wins and a loss by a field goal in overtime. Defense had 9 sacks yesterday. I know it was against a 5 backup offensive lineman, 9 sacks is impressive. 3.7 yards per carry allowed. This is the defense that hasn't been able to stop the run. They blew up the line of scrimmage all day. They only allowed 11 first downs. They won the game despite being -1 in turnovers and only scoring 1 touchdown and 5 red zone opportunities. They won the game as underdogs, and they won it by 3 scores. Those are positive signs. Dietrich Weiss, who had a couple of sacks yesterday. Really, it's a testament to us playing together. We couldn't have had any of those plays without our DBs shutting down 2 really good receivers and tight ends. It was just complete defensive effort, and then really, overall, a big team effort just playing our ball. Again, some of it was the Bears. A lot of it was the Bears, but that's the best the Patriots defense has looked probably in any game this season. If LA struggles tonight, don't be surprised if this line reopens with the Rams as shorter chalk than what we're seeing right now.
Teddy, moving down the list, 457, 458, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick. AFC North Division battle. Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers. Ravens -3 with juice pretty much across the board. 47 being the total here. Ravens short favorites on the road in the Steel City.
Yeah, the look-ahead line was 3 with juice. 3 -120 for Baltimore, total of 44. My powering number only comes 2 on this ballgame. I'm a little bit off market on Baltimore, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Markets opened 3 and 47 last night. And now we're seeing 3 with juice and 47.5 at most books. There are as high as 48 out there. There's still a 47 in the global marketplace if you shop around. Lamar, on Thursday Night Football, and this gives Baltimore extra time to prepare. No interceptions, no sacks, 4 touchdown passes, 8.8 yards per pass attempt. All right. In 8 games, remember the Ravens started 0-2. In the 8 games since, Lamar Jackson, 22 touchdowns, 1 interception. They were, 14 points down in the second half. That's their largest deficit in the last 3 years. And then they gained 231 of the 389 yards in the fourth quarter. John Harbaugh. It starts with Lamar. Oftentimes it ends with Lamar. In between, it's Lamar and Lamar. There's a lot of great players out there that are surrounding him. I think it's kind of where our offense is right now. But for as good as Lamar Jackson has been, this Ravens defense is a problem. All right. They've given up a league high 28 completions of 25 or more yards. They have the number 32, dead last in the NFL in pass defense. And oh, by the way, Kyle Hamilton, their Pro Bowl safety, he got hurt and didn't return to the field. You want to check his status before you bet on Baltimore this week. As for Pittsburgh, look, they gifted Washington a TD with the ill-advised fake punt. Well executed, except for that the guy didn't catch the ball. It would have been a first down. Had a touchdown taken away, essentially with a fumble on the 1-yard line on a play that should have been whistled dead. And they still won the game as an underdog, despite, essentially 14 points they gave away. Why? Dominant defense, 242 total yards, 4.1 yards per play allowed. 4.1 yards per pass attempt allowed. So now 4 straight wins for Pittsburgh, including 3-0 since Russell Wilson took over for Justin Fields. But they, too, suffered some key defensive injuries in that ballgame. Alex Highsmith, who was in the backfield all day, was a difference maker yesterday. He got hurt in the second half. So did the quarterback, Dante Johnson. So both teams with defensive injuries here. And a total, 47 might be a little low.
Yeah, Ravens, you hit on a lot of it. The winning streak, Lamar Jackson, and also where Teddy, I think, was teeing up, they've been an over machine of late. We get the Las Vegas Raiders, Miami Dolphins up next. Dolphins, -7-point home favorites, 45 being the total. A reminder here, guys, Dolphins playing Monday Night Football, so heading back cross-country, playing at home, hosting the Raiders here, Teddy, laying the full touchdown across the board.
Yeah, and again, so we talked a little bit earlier about the Rams and the Patriots, and I said if the Rams look bad tonight, New England will likely to come as shorter than the +4.5, +5 that are out there right now. If the Rams look great tonight, I don't think it goes up to a touchdown. When it comes to the Miami side, if Miami looks bad tonight, I think they'll still be laying a TD to the Raiders. There's not any market respect for the Raiders right now. If Miami looks good tonight, this number could easily be 7.5. So if you like Miami on Monday Night Football, you may want to consider a bet on Miami right now at -7 against the Raiders. I would not be surprised. Again, if they look like the Dolphins were supposed to look this season, this number could easily be 7.5. Looking at the numbers here, look ahead line was Miami. That's 7. I can't see if I have a hook there. I think it was 7.5 at the Westgate. 7.5, 45. My powering number, Miami, 7.5. The market's open 7 and 45.5 last night. And we're seeing mostly 7/45, 5.5 right now. Raiders are coming off a pretty ugly loss to the Bengals, 41-24 in that ballgame. They were non-competitive after halftime, and a bye week in that game at Cincy, who doesn't have a great defense, just 3.7 yards per play and a couple of turnovers. And the quarterback problems for Las Vegas are not going anywhere. Aiden O'Connell's on IR. He's not an NFL quarterback. Gardner Minshew's been benched again. He's not an NFL quarterback. Desmond Ritter's no NFL quarterback either. Minshew and Ritter both split time in the last game. I have no idea who's going to start here. From a powering standpoint, it makes no difference. Neither one is capable of marching up and down the field. And, of course, the defense allowed 4 touchdowns in 5 red zone tries in that game at Cincinnati. And what they do in the off week? Well, let's see. They fired all the offensive assistants. Luke Getsy, gone. Offensive coordinator. Quarterbacks coach Rick Scangarello, gone. Offensive line coach James Craig, gone. And who'd they bring in? They brought in Norv Turner, who's been an offensive coordinator for 7 different teams. Now he's a senior advisor. And all these old coaches are coming and getting paychecks from the Raiders. Marvin Lewis. There's a whole handful of them that have come in and joined the Raiders as advisors, and they're cashing checks and hanging around on the sidelines. And the reports I hear, they're collecting checks and hanging out on the sidelines in terms of how much they're affecting the Raiders. It's not all that much. But again, it's a team on a 5-game losing streak that just fired half their staff. They're not any good. Is this their spot? Maybe. There's certainly urgency for the Raiders, but I'm not convinced that's necessarily going to matter. Worth noting, the Dolphins, they're 2-6 heading into the game tonight. If they lose tonight, they'll be 2-7. And maybe the markets will devalue Miami at that point. But the Raiders are not a team that I'm expecting to see much betting marketplace support for moving forward.
Absolutely, Teddy. Interesting profile there. The 2-6 team laying a touchdown hosting the Raiders speaks volumes of Las Vegas. All right, we'll go from South Florida to the Motor City up next here, Teddy. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. Lions -12.5, as high as -13.5 out there. 47 in the hook being the total. Jacksonville at Detroit. Next one up.
Yeah, look ahead line has Trevor Lawrence in the mix in theories. Look ahead line here is 10.5, 50.5. My powering number is 14. The market's open 13, 48.5 last night. And as you mentioned, it's not going up. It's been going down. We've seen a little bit of early money for Jacksonville. And as the moment, we have no status on Lawrence, but I heard he was going to be out multiple weeks. I just want to double check. And now he's officially listed as questionable with a shoulder. I don't know that we're going to see Lawrence, but if he does, Lawrence is worth, I read something last week, he's worth a field goal. If you watch Mac Jones yesterday, Trevor Lawrence is worth more than a field goal. I have him worth 4.5 points to the number. And my -14 for Detroit is without Trevor Lawrence. That's with Mac Jones behind center. Lions coming off that crazy Sunday Night Football game last night. Teams that had been down by 15 points in a game and had thrown 5 interceptions were 1 in 331 or something. Let me get the actual number because it's certainly meaningful when you talk about how rare what Detroit did last night. 373 1-1 when a team led by at least 15 points and had 5 interceptions. That's the Texans last night. So the Lions were 1 in 373 in that angle. And, they found a way to win. Now it's 2 in 373. The last time that happened, Johnny Unitas was the quarterback who threw the 5 interceptions. So, and the Baltimore Colts won 21-20. That was 1970. That's what Detroit did last night. Okay? So this Lions team has proven to be spot proof thus far. They've proven to be deficit proof. The character of this team is pretty intense. At some point, you expect an exhale. They got to have an exhale game at some point. Maybe this is it. Might be the right team at the right time, but we haven't seen that from Detroit a whole lot just yet. In fact, we haven't seen that from Detroit at all just yet. And as for Jacksonville, I mean, look, they gained 3.3 yards per play on offense yesterday. They were out first down 28-10. They had 143 total yards. They allowed 402. They had less than 18 minutes of possession, 17 and change. And they lost the game. Mac Jones is still Mac Jones. 2 picks, 3 sacks, 87 net yards on 25 dropbacks. All of his turnovers came with the game on the line in the fourth quarter. Jacksonville, the yardage total, the 5th lowest in franchise history. And Doug Peterson now 3-13 straight up in his last 16 games. Cluster injuries in the offensive line. They're down to their 3rd left guard right now. The offense hasn't worked since Christian Kirk got hurt. Doug Peterson. I never expected to be here, obviously. We have 5 or 6 one-score games. It's hard as a team, the coaches. We're making it hard. We're making it too hard. The guys are frustrated and they should be. They're angry and they should be. We all are. Is that a bet on quote moving forward? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily at all. We get Minnesota and Tennessee next game up, guys. And let us know in the live chat if you're watching live where you agree, where you disagree, what you're seeing in the NFL. Also in the comments below, guys. Teddy and myself will be in there throughout the week chiming it up with you. All is welcome. It helps out the algorithm growing the show. We should have time at the end of the show, guys, for you guys in the live chat. We'll answer some questions from last week's show as we got the Arizona Cardinals, Carolina Panthers, New York Giants, and Tampa Bay Bucks all on buys. So a little bit of a shorter show here, but we'll move down the list, Eddie. 463, 464, the last early kick here, 10 a.m. Pacific. Actually, we have one more with Indianapolis, New York Jets getting flexed out, but tee it up for you, Teddy. Minnesota and Tennessee. It's the Vikings, minus 6-point road favorites, 39 and a hook being the total in Nashville.
Yeah, Indiana and Tennessee, Indiana and New York, deservedly getting flexed out of the Sunday night game. Before we break this game down, do want to talk about a promotion we've got right now. Look, I'm running good in the NFL. I've hit 63% over the last 7 weeks. The 5% big ticket, 65% since 2018, 69% for the last 13 plays, won again yesterday. You can take $50 off an NFL or college football season pass. Just use promo code FBALL50. Again, FBALL50 at checkout is going to get you $50 off an NFL or college football season pass. And if you want to do hoops, take $30 off an NBA pass right now. You use the promo code BBALL30. It's BBALL30, but you still get $50 off because it's a 30-day pass for NBA. So again, FBALL50 at checkout gets you 30 days in the NFL or college football. BBALL30 will get you 30 days in the NBA. Now, what are we talking about? The Vikings and the Titans? Look ahead line. Minnesota minus 5.5, total 41.5. My powering number, Minnesota minus 6.5. The market's open 6.5 and 39.5 last night. And we've seen the 6.5s get bought out. It's mostly 6s out there, still sitting at 39.5 for the total. Sam Darnold had a rough day yesterday. 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, all 3 picks. He was trying to target Justin Jefferson, kind of forcing the ball in there. He actually threw 4 picks, but there was one that was negated by a penalty. Minnesota went 0 for 5 in the red zone. They had 42 minutes of possession. I just talked about the numbers against Jacksonville. A 402 to 143 yardage edge, a 28 to first down edge. And yet the Jags were 1 play away from winning the game. Head coach Kevin O'Connell. These are the types of games that good football teams find a way to win, regardless of what it looks like all day. I'm proud of that. There's absolutely a lot of things we need to correct and fix. It's also worth noting after the game, there's some talk. Are you going to bench Darnold? Darnold, are you thinking about benching Darnold when he was struggling? And he says, hell no. No effing way that I would have benched Darnold for Nick Mullins, and I don't blame him. Darnold's their QB. He should be their QB. He's the best option they have. Nick Mullins is not. After the game, Darnold, I got to do a lot better job to take care of the football. I think that's obvious. Minnesota certainly has a better offensive game in them than the one they just played. So Tennessee, again, I mean, I'm not going to call it non-competitive, but they were pretty non-competitive against the Chargers yesterday. Will Levis back in the lineup, 18 to 23 for $175, 2 touchdowns, no picks versus a solid defense. But before we give him credit for those good numbers, he had 58 of those 175 passing yards on a meaningless garbage time touchdown drive, which means he had 113, 123 yards. Why am I missing on the math here? 117 yards, 175 minus 58, 117 yards throughout the game going into that meaningless touchdown drive at the end. And, of course, you have continuing offensive line issues for the Titans. Right tackle's a big problem right now. They were rotating Leroy Watson and John Ojuoku yesterday. Watson got penalized 3 times. The 2 of them cost the team 20 yards on a drive that ended up with a missed 49 field goal. And then Ojuoku came in and gave up a sack. It's a problem for Tennessee on the offensive side of the football right now. And it's not like the defense is good enough to keep them in games. Tennessee, not exactly a team I'm excited about putting my money on at this stage of the campaign.
Moving down the list to the afternoon kicks. Up next, 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific, Seattle and San Francisco. We're heading out west here, TC. -6 in the hook. That is the 49ers as the home favorite. 49 being the total. Seahawks at Niners.
Look headline here, Seattle 6.5 and 49. My powering number comes, San Francisco 6.5 and 49. My powering number comes Niners 8, and I'm not all that high on San Fran. So it looks like I'm a little bit off market on Seattle coming out of the bye. The market's open 6.5, 48.5 last night, and we've seen a little bit of over money. It's still 6.5 now, 49 this morning. Seattle's 1-5 their last 6 games. They're off a brutal overtime loss to the Rams in a bye week. We'll have to see if that receiving core is healthy. When DK Metcalf is not in the game, this offense feels the difference. And Geno Smith's making mistakes. And, Geno Smith's going to be your Sam Darnold's of the world. Better now than he was, but not one of the QBs you necessarily trust week in, week out, especially against good defenses. For San Fran, all you do yesterday, if they'd have lost the game for their non-cover, you can blame the kicker. Jake Moody missed 3 field goals. They muffed a punt, too, leading to an easy Bucs score. They couldn't run the football yesterday. That's a concern. 22 carries, 75 yards. Christian McCaffrey, just 3 yards per carry in his return. All that being said, they gained 6.8 yards per play on offense and allowed only 3.7. They outgained Tampa by more than 3 yards per play. They didn't cover. Why? They were -1 in turnovers. They went -3 in the red zone. They missed all those field goals. And it's not like Moody's a huge issue. He came in 13 of 14. He's been a good kicker for the 49ers over the years in general. And then, of course, on the sideline, Deebo Samuel get into a physical altercation with the long snapper of all people, which created a lot of post-game comment. Moody after the game, like I said, heat of the moment, it happens. I have to make those kicks at the end of the day. That said, I'm focused, Shanahan after the game. Guys are frustrated. Something probably happened. Brothers scuffle a little bit. I didn't see any of it, so I don't know how bad it was. It's something I'm not too worried about it. We'll fix it if it hasn't been fixed already. We'll fix it on the plane and go back to loving each other on Monday. San Fran did not look good yesterday. That said, they may have the right team at the right time, and they could look better this time around. 49ers are absolutely on my short list for this Sunday's action. I did not play on or against them yesterday.
Heading a mile high up next, guys. Atlanta Falcons, Denver Broncos. We were seeing the Broncos minus the 1 and a hook pretty much across the board here, Teddy. 44 being the total. Dirty Birds heading up to Denver, Colorado. Atlanta at Denver. Next game up.
A look ahead line, Atlanta -2.5, 43. My powering number came Atlanta -1 for the ball game. Denver opened the favorite. -1.5. There were -1s, total of 44. And we're seeing pretty much 1.5s across the board right now, total holding in the 44 range. So we've seen him move towards Denver off the 2 teams' performances this past weekend. Now, Denver, the defense got gashed in Baltimore, got right back on track against Kansas City. They held the Chiefs to 1 touchdown. The first time the Broncos has ever sacked Mahomes more than 3 times in the 14 different games they faced him. The pass rush was there all day. Obviously, the way that game ended was tough. They had a 35-yard game-winning field goal. And 35-yarder, you expect those to make. I got blocked as time expired. Sean Payton, I felt like we outplayed them, but we didn't finish. This one will take a while. It'll sting. Bo Nix, they just made 1 extra play. We thought it was in our hands. It wasn't. It's tough. And again, it's 2 good football teams out there playing against each other. One day it will go our way. So Denver now off back-to-back losses, both in step-up games on the road. In theory, it's supposed to be a bounce-back spot for them at home. For Atlanta, we talked about blaming the kicker in San Francisco. Let's blame the kicker in Atlanta as well. 35 minutes of possession, 468 total yards, a 25-14 first down edge. The D held New Orleans to 1 of 3 in the red zone, including a huge 4th down stop. But what happened? Well, Young Hoku is missing field goals. 3 missed field goals. And that's the most in his career that's happened, including the potential game-tying field goal that would have sent it overtime, blah, blah, blah. They ran for 181 yards. They outgained New Orleans by more than 100. They should have won, and they didn't. Both these teams probably should have won. But Atlanta, here's Kirk Cousins' quote. It was certainly a tough loss. We had a chance to take the lead late in the game and not being able to do it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. This is one that you're sick over. So 2 teams that are just gutted from what happened last week. Interesting to see which of these 2 teams can avoid the hangover effect and not lose the same game twice.
We had them and we let them off the hook. That's what that kind of reminds me of there, Teddy. We got 1:25 p.m. Pacific.
They are what we thought they were.
Oh, yeah. One of the better ones. We get the Chiefs and the Bills. Next one up, guys. 2 first-place teams. Possible playoff preview here, Teddy. 45.5 being the total. -2.5. That is the Bills as the short home favorite against the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs here. So it's Chiefs at Bills after late afternoon kick in the state of New York.
And look at the market respect for Buffalo here, or the market disrespect for Kansas City, which has been there pretty consistently all season. Look headline, Bills -2, 46.5. My powering number, Bills -1.5. The market's open 2 and 45.5 last night, so lower than the look ahead total had indicated. And we're seeing even 45s out there right now. 2.5 is a prevailing number, so we have seen a little bit of Buffalo money. Josh Allen made mistakes yesterday. He did not play his best game. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, and it didn't matter. Bills offense is clicking. Another 30-point game. They've scored 30-plus 7 times in 10 games this season, in each of the last 4. The defense forced 4 turnovers. This is an 8-2 football team. Now, they do have some concerns when it comes to wide receiver injuries. All right. Keon Coleman hurt. Amari Cooper hasn't played yet. Dalton Kincaid left during the game yesterday, the star tight end. Those are concerns. Another concern, they gave up 5.5 yards per carry against the Colts yesterday, but don't be fooled by that. Jonathan Taylor had a big run first half. He did nothing after halftime of that ball game when Buffalo's defense had to stop the run. They did. The quotes after the game continue to be the positive quotes we've seen from Buffalo all year. We like the team chemistry here. Sean McDermott, I thought the defense, the takeaways, was big-time difference in the game. I think they were a very competitive group. They take pride in not letting each other down. Meanwhile, Josh Allen, we got to have a faster start. We didn't play our best today, but we'll take the win. We'll take them how we can get them. I threw 2 interceptions, can't do that. We'll be cleaner. We got to play better on offense. Defense played awesome. We gritted it out, and it was a team win right there. Buffalo, very positive locker room chemistry quotes. It's been that way all year. As for Kansas City, look, they were dogs in all the playoff games last year on the road, and then went and found a way to win them. They have been, in many ways, a poor favorite, certainly a bigger favorite this year because they're winning a lot of games by 1-score margins. And one thinks KC isn't going undefeated. I don't think. They have the lowest point differential for any current, any undefeated team at this stage of the season in NFL history. So I got to think someone's beating KC, and this is the type of game they could lose. Against Denver, at home, 4.6 yards per play, 57 rushing yards at 3.0 yards per attempt, 1 of 4 in the red zone. This is not a great offense, but no team is better at playing complementary football and finding ways to win. Again, 7 of their 9 wins, they're come by a touchdown or less, and they're 9-0 this season. The blocked field goal to win it. That's what KC does. They find ways to win like this, games like this one. And if you watch the blocked field goal, they blew that play up. The 15-game winning streak for Kansas City is kind of going against history right now. The longest in the NFL since the Packers won 19 in a row from 2010 into 2011. They've won 8 straight games when trailing in the second half. They win this game, it's over in the AFC. They're going to be 3 games ahead of Buffalo and all other AFC teams with tiebreakers in their favor. So there's certainly urgency for Kansas City, but I'm not shocked. that the Bills are the favorites here. I'm not one of those guys that bet against KC in the postseason last year, but this isn't last year's postseason. It's 2024 now.
Like it, Teddy. Big game there. We got another big one here. Cincinnati and the LA Chargers. Cincinnati with extra preparation time off the Thursday nighter. We are seeing the Bolts anywhere from -1 to -2 short home favorites, Teddy. 47 the total in Southern California.
Yeah, flex into Sunday Night Football. Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. And this one should be a lot of fun. Look ahead line here. Chargers -1.5, total 42.5. The look ahead line came out before the Thursday night game. My powering number is the Chargers -3. Markets open 2 and 46 last night, and now we're seeing 1/1.5, total of 47. So a little bit of over money, a little bit of Bengals money. And I'll give Cincy and their coaching staff some credit. They knew they couldn't run the ball against Baltimore, and they didn't even try. 59 dropbacks from Burrow and company, 13 rushing attempts for Chase Brown. And Brown was the only running back to touch the ball. Jamar Chase was unstoppable in that ball game, 11 catches, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns. The defense for Cincy has been an issue. No interceptions, no sacks, 8.8 yards per pass attempt allowed. That could be a problem. And obviously no flag on the final 2-point conversion try. Everyone likes that they went for the 2-point conversion, but in fact, it obviously didn't work in their favor. They didn't get the flags. Zach Taylor, we had our opportunity. We got down there, went for 2. It just didn't work out for us. This team is going to continue to put us in good positions, and there's going to be a point in this season where that turns. So it's certainly not a Bengals team that looks to me to be throwing in the towel, even off that loss. The Chargers are 6-3. That being said, their wins, Titans, Browns, Saints, Broncos, Panthers, Raiders. 5 of the 6 wins have come against absolute bottom feeders. Now, you can't blame the Chargers for that. They can only play the teams on their schedule. It's not their fault that all those teams suck, but we don't want to put the cart before the horse with LA. They've not beaten a whole lot of good teams. I don't know if Cincinnati's all that good. And yes, they're 4-1 their last 5 ball games. They're only the 4th team since 1990, the first team since 2013 to allow 20 points or fewer in each of their first 9 games. This defense has played at an elite level. That being said, it could be missing both starting cornerbacks this week. A couple of rookies, Cam Hart, 5th round, and Tarheeb Still, also 5th rounder, started at outside corner yesterday. Of course, this passing game a lot different from the one they just faced in the Tennessee Titans. So I can understand why this line is lower than my powering number. There are, it's a Chargers team that while they played well, hard for me to trust them against a good pass defense until we've actually seen them play one. Or good passing offense until we've seen them actually play one, I should say.
Sure, Teddy. We got 2 games left here, guys. Shout out to the live chat, everybody coming in. B Daddy, Roger Long in the house, Mike Campbell as well. Fire away any questions in the live chat. Now is the time. We'll answer them on today's show. And if you're watching on replay, feel free to fire away in the comments below, and we'll answer them on next week's show, as we got a couple from last week's show we'll hit here at the end. The final Sunday game, it's a 10 a.m. Pacific kick. Indianapolis Colts, New York Jets. Jets -3 or -3.5. Pretty much a split line here, Teddy. 44 being the total.
The look headline here, Jets -3.5, total of 44. My powering number only comes Jets 2 in this ball game. The markets opened 3 and 44 last night. And guess what? We're seeing Jets money. Not my money. Of course, the Colts have their own issues. I used Indy as a sell team in my Just a Tip segment on Betternet a few weeks ago, saying that this team's a little bit overrated. And guess what? We're seeing the Colts come back there. They're now 1-3 with Flacco behind center, 0-2 since Anthony Richardson was officially benched. Baffling game plan against Buffalo. Jonathan Taylor, 100 yards at halftime, 5.5 yards to carry, and then he only had 5 carries second half, completely shut down. Flacco's now thrown 6 interceptions in 2 games since replacing Richardson. He was booed off the field here. They're playing 3 rookie offensive linemen in yesterday's game. They deactivated their top receiver, Michael Pittman, who was hurt. For all the issues where Flacco's throwing picks, I'll say this. Flacco sees the field really well. He's putting the ball up for his receivers to make plays, They haven't always made plays, and Flacco's not perfect. I mean, quote, the first one was just an awful decision. The toughest thing about not playing well is just your mentality and having to deal with the fact you're not playing well. And the best way to do that is going back to work. Of course, the Pro Bowl quarterback Kenny Moore, former Pro Bowl quarterback Kenny Moore, went off on the team last night after the game. I don't think everyone's going as hard as possible. And obviously it's showing. I'm not the type to sugarcoat it. Honestly, I don't think the urgency is there. I don't think the details are there. I don't think everything correlating from meetings to practice to the games, and it shows. That's, firing a shot across the bow. Your teammates, your coaching staff, we'll see if it results in a positive response or a negative response. The Jets have only had negative responses. Yesterday's game was pretty awful. They look like a very quit team. And again, they made all the moves. You fired your head coach, you fired your coordinator, you brought in Davante Adams, and what's happened since? Basically the same. Interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich is now 1-4 as the head coach. The defense, which was playing great under Robert Saleh, they allowed touchdown drives of 70, 70, 70, and 88 yards before forcing a punt yesterday. They bring in Hassan Reddick. Oh, yeah, come into the fold. Invisible in that ball game. Future Hall of Fame quarterback throwing to Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson against the 24th ranked pass defense. Well, Rodgers had 38 dropbacks for 128 net yards, 4.3 yards per pass attempt and sacked 6 times. They were outgained 2-1. They went 0-3 in the red zone. They allowed 4 red zones and 4 touchdowns and 5 red zone tries. Albrecht after the game. We were not prepared to play. We didn't execute even close to our standard. That falls on my shoulders 100%. I didn't do a good enough job getting these guys ready. The Jets are a difficult team to lay points with right now. We haven't seen their A game enough to be sure that they have it. And last week's game, that game against Arizona, that was a quit game. And when you have a team that had high expectations that isn't going to reach those expectations, sometimes you see a lack of effort down the stretch. And I'm not convinced the home field matters a lot. It's a positive sign for the Jets. Everyone at MetLife is booing everyone because the Jets and Giants both suck on this field. A lot of times when you're playing poorly, you'd rather be on the highway than having the home fans boo you every time you punt.
One game left here, guys. A couple promos to take advantage of. Take $50 off NFL or college football season pass with the code FBALL50 at checkout, or save $50 either college basketball or NBA 30-day pass with the coupon code BBALL30. Check out Teddy Covers, guys. In the NFL, obviously knows the sport, watching the show. 14-8, 63% the last 7 weeks in the NFL, and the 5% big tickets, 65% since 2018. He's on a 9-4 run as well. So those coupon codes, FBALL50 at checkout, NFL or college football season pass. We got the Monday nighter here, Teddy. Houston and Dallas. Texans -7. There is 7.5 out there as the road favorite. 42.5 being the total. Texans at Cowboys Monday Night Football.
Look at a line here. Houston -5.5, total 43.5. My powering number, Houston -6. I have Dallas power rate as a bottom 5 team right now. And the market's open 7 and 42, and now we're seeing 7.5 and 42.5 at a lot of books. 40, it's a split line, 42/42.5 when it comes to the total. But more 7.5s than 7s right now. All the 7s with juice for Houston. I mean, at least Dallas isn't. They are at home. Oops. Their last 5 home games, they've trailed by 20 points or more, including the playoffs. That's an NFL record. And when you're trailing by 20 points or more in 5 straight games, you know what happens. You have CeeDee Lamb complaining about curtains because not blocking the sun. That's the big story. After the game, you have the fans booing. There are times where home field can be a negative. And what's happening with Dallas right now, home field is a negative. Really is, because the pressure's there and the crowd support isn't. Cooper Rush yesterday, 13 of 23 for 45 yards. Dallas had 2.6 yards per play, 146 total yards, 11 first downs. The defense allowed 4 touchdowns in 5 red zone attempts. They got Micah Parsons back in the lineup. Micah Parsons had 2 sacks, and it didn't matter. Parsons after the game. Understand that our quarterback's out. Things ain't always going to be how you expect it, and it's kind of just got to be the light. It's one of those years, like I say, it's challenging, but we've got to be the light for everyone. Talk about the defensive side of the football. That clearly was not the case yesterday. The quotes after the game come from Jerry Jones, asking if he was stick with Mike McCarthy, who clearly won't be back through the end of the season. Quote, "Yeah, I believe that. I don't believe we'll make a coaching change during the season." That's not, we love our coach. He's around for the long term. That's any of that. And I don't believe we'll make a coaching change during this season. Dallas is pretty unbackable right now. That being said, in theory, it's supposed to be a Texan spot. We'll have to see how healthy that receiving core is. CJ Stroud made a lot of mistakes last night. 2 bad interceptions. One of them should have been a touchdown. Instead, it was a pick. And that cost him the game. The Texans offense shut out after halftime. Stroud at least took the blame after the game. He said, that was all me. It was on my shoulders. But Houston's been a poor favorite all season long. And this hasn't been their point spread range. So 2 bad options for Monday Night Football next week. First glance, I probably won't get involved.
All right, guys, fire away. Any questions in the live chat? We got time for a couple here, Teddy. We got Kyle Thriller from last week's show in the comments. Hey, Teddy and Drew, thanks for a great show as usual. Any ATS against the spread trends for teams the game following a coach firing? I often hear people talk about take that team and their fired coach. We also have some replies here. NHL coach fired from Kelly. That's a bet on. Also, I'll throw in there in Major League Baseball, it seems to be a pretty bet on situation when the manager gets fired. Do you look at that kind of angle in the NFL, Teddy?
So the Saints won yesterday and covered. It was not necessarily because they had a new coach. It was because Atlanta missed field goals. The Jets fired their coach. And the interim coach, what happened the first game? Lost and failed to cover. Yes, in theory, you're lighting a fire under everyone's ass when you fire a coach. I don't have the hard numbers. They asked Ralph, and Ralph did. It was difficult numbers to create out of a database, parameter-wise. So I don't have hard numbers. In theory, it's bet on. I wouldn't be surprised if long-term it is bet on, but this is all case-by-case scenario for me. I'm not going to blindly bet on a team who just fired their coach. I'm not going to blindly bet against them. There's some bump, and New Orleans showed us that yesterday, but most of the coaches getting fired are getting fired because their team stinks and the injuries are riddled. I mean, the majority of them are injury related. It really is. When you see why, when coaches get fired in season, they get fired in season because their players got hurt and they got nothing competitive they can put out there. That doesn't change after the coach gets fired. Great question. Thanks for asking.
Teddy, we have a question here. Thursday night football, betting it under. I'll add on to it. Does day of the week, time of the kickoff affect your handicap, either side or total? Because there was that long run of Thursday night games in the NFL going under. However, I'll throw in this season, they're 6-4 to the over. Also, some interesting trends. Primetime Monday night football is 9-3 to the over, whereas Sunday night football is 2-7 to the under. Day of the week, time of the kickoff, does it affect your handicap?
So this is a really important thing to note. If you look for trends, you will find them. Trends exist for everything. Angles exist for everything. Your goal when examining a trend is this meaningful moving forward? We talk about Sunday night games going under or over, Monday night games going over. I don't see anything for that that's meaningful in any way. Thursday is the exception to the rule. Thursday NFL is a bad product. It is a weaker product than the rest of the league. The league decided we're willing to put out a bad product on Thursday night because we get so much damn money for it. So they do. And we get a Thursday night game every week. Every week, the Thursday night teams are unprepared. The question is, they're going to be more unprepared on offense or more unprepared on defense. And sometimes that's pretty random. But in general, when both sides of the football are unprepared, it's the offense that has to be in rhythm in order to get the game up and over the total. So I'm not shocked that long-term, the Thursday night games have been more unders than overs in general. Not every circumstance, but in general. If I'm playing a Thursday night total, I'm usually trying to make a case for the under as opposed to expecting a high-flying shootout. And last week we saw 35-34. Crazy game. They're not all like that.
Makes sense, Teddy. We got Grits Blitz in the house in the live chat saying, question, is this the time of the year when dogs are barking? Favorites doing well so far? That's his comment here. Do you have a time of the year when you look to bet dogs or favorites, Teddy?
So, yes, I do. So we talked about this at the beginning of October. All right. We said now is the time of year that the public actually has a chance because the wise guys are still betting what teams are supposed to be, and the public is betting what teams actually are. And what did we see in October? We saw a huge public run. I think the favorites went like 96 and 56, and bookmakers had several very bad weeks and no big weeks for a 5-week span. I haven't seen a whole lot of reports for yesterday, but one would expect after that type of a run where the favorites have been cashing for 5 or 6 weeks and the public's been doing well for 5 and 6 weeks, one would expect the pendulum to swing back in the other direction. Yes, not a bad time of year to be looking for dogs in the NFL.
Like it, Teddy. Guys, remember the promos. Take $50 off NFL or college football season pass with the code FBALL50. It also works college basketball or NBA 30-day pass with code BBALL30 at checkout. The football one is FBALL50 at checkout. Teddy covers 65% since 2018 on the 5% big tickets. And overall in the NFL, 63% the last 7 weeks. Teddy, great show, as always, action-packed, info-packed. I'll throw it over to you. Any final thoughts before we shut it down?
Yeah, don't buy my College Hoops 30-day all-access pass because I'm not putting out College Hoops till after Thanksgiving. Working 3 sports is enough. I personally cannot do 4. 3 is too many. But we're working college football, NFL, and NBA right now. Best value is always with the all-access pass. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate those comments. Appreciate the likes. Appreciate the follows. And you can listen to this show or watch this show every major podcast outlet. It's everywhere. So if you want to tell your friends about it, they can download it at all major podcast outlets. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck Monday Night Football. Best of luck this week.
He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. Guys, we're checking out. We'll be back next Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Come back and join us. Until then, smash that like button, comment below. Any questions, fire away. Cash those tickets. Thanks for tuning in.